Now back to today, and we're in our family slot for this week, and we're in the second part of our parenting series, and of course we looked at the foundations, putting in the foundations, and this week we're moving on and we're talking about meeting the needs of our children. This week is all about children's needs, and we're going to look at the 5 love languages, and to do that we're joined on the line from Alpha Ireland by Alan Morris. Good morning, Alan.
Good morning, Anna. Just thinking of families and things like that. I don't know whether many people know, but Wally Burrell, who was very involved in Christian Seamen's missions particularly down in Cork Harbour, died 2 days ago.
That's right.
Just many people knew of him and his mission and his outreach, and what a great man in getting out there into the boats down there. And just like to think of pray for as Paul and Lily and Amanda and Lorenzo deal with their dad dying. He was such a great man. I remember hearing the story where he arrived at a church for the first time. He couldn't find the place, and he asked a lady at the bus stop, "Do you know where this church is?" And she told him, and he said, "Would you like to come with me?" And she came with him, and he was really like that. He was so affable, and people just gravitated towards him. And churches started up abroad abroad because of his outreach to people on the boats there in Cork Harbour. So think of his family as they deal with his passing into going to heaven.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Many people knew of Walter Burrell here in Cork and knew of the work that he did for just such a huge time in his life, and of course that work is continuing. And I know we were talking here recently at the station about the Seamen's Mission, and this whole thing of giving presents, and I know the guys who are involved in that at the moment are gathering up presents to give to those who come in from these into Cork Harbour on these ships. Some of them may not have been home for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months in the year, and how they greatly appreciate the little things and having somebody come on. And I know that was Walter's heart to just really reach out to these guys. And as you quite rightly said, we've had some amazing stories over the last year even of areas in the world where churches have grown up, and these guys have gone back and brought the light of the gospel into their own homes and countries and towns and villages.
Yeah, it's just, I remember reading an article about a church that started up just simply by Wally chatting to this man and then becoming a Christian and then going back to his own country and starting the church there, and how it evolved. And, I'm also challenged by the way he had such an open house in his home. Like people who, may have come back from dubious backgrounds or whatever, he just opened his house to them and welcomed them in, and he was just so transparent in that, and sometimes I'm not good at that, and I challenge myself in that, how he just was just willing to be open, simply open, no hidden agendas, but just have a love for the Lord. And I am challenged by Wally Burrell in all that. A great man, and he was vulnerable in it. He wasn't great at remembering people's names, but he was just open to just chatting with you about the Gospels, and he had great stories about how things had happened, and he was a great man.
Yeah, and greatly missed by many, but as you said, going on to glory with the Lord. And we certainly would encourage people to think of his family at this time.
Yes, exactly. So, children's needs. So last week we looked at building strong foundations and what was a family. A family provides support, provides fun. A family provides a moral compass. A family provides a model for relating to others, and how we establish a healthy family life, and how do we play together, how healthy bonding, healthy routines, what we do maybe at meal times, bedtimes, creating time, family times, fun times simply together. So now we're looking at the 5 kind of love languages. I'm going to look at words and touch first.
Okay.
Love and action. Love and action. Self-confidence is built through knowing we are loved. That's a lot to do with confidence. So how can we instill that in our children? How can we instill the whole thing of knowing that they are loved unconditionally, no matter what we do? I often talk about separation the issue, the actual thing that they've done wrong from the love,
Yeah.
and knowing that they're just simply loved no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
That's a powerful thing.
Yeah. And it is important, as you said, even with our relationships with each other, that we, again, take that into our relationships with our children, that we separate the problem or the issue from a personal issue, that we put that outside of both of us, and we still have that relationship outside of the issue.
Diane sometimes says, "I love you too much to let you get away with this." You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Kind of separating the thing from the love. Challenging that as well.
Yeah.
But self-confidence enables us to. What does it enable us to do? It enables us to be different when we need to be. Sometimes to stand up and disagree in situations, or not go with the flow when something bad is happening. How can we be strong enough in that they say, no, I don't want to take drugs, no, I don't want to drink, or I don't want to steal, just because maybe a group are there and they want to, or they're going to do something that isn't right. To be able to say, no, I don't want to do this, and that takes strength of character, and we have to kind of instill that in our children. We also need to build a close relationship with our children. We often talk about emotional tanks. How can we fill their emotional tanks? I sometimes notice when I've gone through a good stage with my kids that we've had a good time together and real kind of connection. And sometimes we go through rough time after that, and how well we get through it, right? Through that hard time. But sometimes when we haven't had that connection beforehand, and we go through a rough time,
Yeah.
It's harder. It's harder. And how we can build those tanks up in the good times, and the positive fun times, maybe playing together, having fun together, or doing something good together, and then that fills up their emotional tank. They feel connected with us. They feel, that's great. And how we create those habits of good things that are great, and fill it up.
Mm-hmm.
It just shows you that there's a golden rule that Steve Chalk talks about, how to succeed as a parent. He says, the golden rule is this: catch your kid red-handed doing something right and praise them for it. Sometimes we connect with our children when it's negative. Yeah. Sometimes when we're disciplining them, when we're giving out to them all the time, we seem to be just giving out to them all the time. If you catch them doing something good, something real, really nice, even for their brothers, even for someone else, emphasize it. Say, well done in doing that, and build on those things. So kind of affirm them. I often say, to my children, go for it. Say, I think you're great. Affirm them in what they're doing, and that builds up their emotional tank as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, Alan, that words have a huge effect on children, the type of words that we use? I remember, I suppose, when we look back as adults and we look back at our childhood, there are certain things that stick in your mind. I remember one particular teacher saying something that really wasn't edifying to me, and it was one of those things that I think formed how I saw myself as I got older.
Well, that song, "Sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never hurt me." That's totally untrue. Words can have huge negative impact in the way. I sometimes hear parents saying, "I don't love you when I don't love you," and they bring love into certain things, like that, that are really damaging to the children. The words have huge impact in what we say and do. And how our children, or how we in our past, as you said with that teacher, how that impacted you in a negative way, hurts us, and how we try to deal with that, and how, we work through, our self-image when we're always being downed all the time. And sometimes people who feel down on themselves, down other people to make themselves feel slightly better. Or they're insecure and things like that in themselves. They try to make other people insecure so they can feel a little bit more secure themselves. So yeah, words do impact. I at my son's dedication service, we had a thing where my brother did the children's talk, and he had about toothpaste, and he got the toothpaste and he pushed it throughout onto the toothbrush, and he says, now, can any of the young people here put the toothpaste back in? None of them could put the toothpaste back in. And words are a little bit like that. We just have to be careful with our words. Believe it or not, our tongue is our strongest muscle in our body. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
Well, there you go now. So we have to be careful with our tongue, and try and, as we talked a bit about in the marriage course, try and work the words of appreciation. Does it edify? Does it help the situation by what we're saying? Does it make it worse? And we have to be careful with our tongue. We use our tongue and try and, as I say, when Steve Chalke says, catch those good moments and build on those good moments, rather than always knocking down and looking at, when we engage with our children, is it always about, don't do this, don't do that? You know what I mean? Try and catch the moments when they're actually doing something right.
Yeah.
And well done.
And I think it's just the way we talk as well. I think in general, I notice certainly here in Cork that there's certain ways that we say things and that we talk, and we don't set out to be mean or to hurt anybody. But I think, when you start to listen more to how we speak to each other, for example, in Cork, you'd often hear people saying, go way out of that, you're useless, or don't be so stupid. Those kind of things. And they actually have an effect on people, whether that's the intention or not.
Yeah, I know. I one of the things that I have at the moment about is, the word that people use, the word, Jesus and God, in such a flippant way, you know what I mean? In such a, they don't even think they're doing it. And it's one of the basic 10 commandments, and I was at a course 2 days ago, and the guy was using it all the time. And I was and I said to a girl I worked with one time, because I don't really know this other man, but I said to this other girl, I'd rather use, and I used a really more, what people would think of as a more extreme word than using Jesus that way or God in that way. And it made her realize that she was using this, Jesus and God, just as a kind of a flippant, nearly cursy word, rather than a word of reverence and a word of, how important the word Jesus and God is in us, and we use it so casually in the way we speak. So that was it's a challenge to people, how we use the word Jesus and God in words. That's a sidebar. Interesting enough, but so yeah, we have to be careful about what we use, and we get into just habits. It's a habit with a lot of things, and in the same way that we get into habit using Jesus and God in a negative way, and not in the way that it is designed for, in reverence and in love. But also we'll go on to affectionate touch. Touch is another thing. How do we express love? Touch, the physical touch, giving our children hugs. It's my dad, my dad was a stoic man in his younger years with us, I suppose. He was maybe the old school in some ways. Yeah. And when Mum died, he grew in that way he related, and he used to give me a hug and a kiss, and it was interesting, and it was lovely, and he grew. And the challenges for older men, how do you relate to your sons? Touch is such a way of, saying I love you in a simple way, in a loving way, in a real way, in a caring way. And how we do that touch with like if you go over to France or something like that, all the men are kissing on either cheeks and all that sort of thing. Like that's, it's not in our culture in many ways, but yet putting our arm around our shoulder, the shoulder of someone we love. I actually hug quite a lot of my male friends, and I like that. And I think that affirms them and affirms me. And maybe we need to look more at showing touch to our friends as well as the ones we love. It's lovely. Yeah. So let's think of something. So a little exercise here for us to think about. How naturally do we find it to speak affirming words and to give affectionate touch to our children? It's a question that I ask myself, and, how do we do that? How naturally do we find it?
Mm.
Does this relate to our own childhood experience, the way we were brought up? Or have we improved on the way our parents might have done it? That's a challenge. I challenge myself. When I was younger, I used to say I've just taken the best parts of my parents and I've brought it into my own parenting. That's not always true, I'm afraid. I'd love to say that. But looking at the way my parents did things, how can I do it in a way that is better and stronger and done in a more connected way?
Mm-hmm.
What are the signs of an empty emotional tank in our children? When you see, your child give out to you with that tone there the other day, were they kind of looking, were their emotional tanks empty? Was their emotional tank empty, and was that attitude because they felt, empty? That's a challenge.
Mm-hmm. It is a challenge, I think. Yeah.
How we keep that tank full, that they feel affirmed, that they feel loved, they feel cared for, that they're unconditionally kind of loved in a way that they can be strong in themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we kind of, I think as parents, we do need to keep a close eye out for those little signals that may not always be very obvious.
Yeah. And sometimes, the kids will look for attention, whether it's negative attention or positive attention. So if they're not getting any positive attention, they'll go down the route of negative attention.
Yeah.
And they'll want attention, and they'll try to draw you into them by doing things that aren't good because they want your attention.
Mm-hmm.
They might, because they'd rather annoy you so they get attention than have nothing. So just look at that and try and find the attention that is a good attention with them. Try and create those habits, trying to sit around dinner together and look at each other and talk about things together, and good, if you like, habits that create a good way of connecting.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how naturally do we find to speak affirming words to our children? Like, do we always down them, or do we actually affirm them?
Mm-hmm.
And does this relate to the experiences of our own children? Were we always downed as a child? And if we were, you look at the impact on that, and maybe we need to look at not doing that, not creating that same cycle that we went through before. And that does take strength to if you like, rewire things that were in many ways taught to us by our upbringing, our past, and how we can catch those moments of positive moments that can say, that was great, well done, continue doing that, that was powerful, that was wonderful. So catch that in the moment.
Yeah.
So what helps you as a parent to give more praise than criticism? What helps me? What helps you, Anna?
Well, I think it's a kind of has a knock-on effect. I think, when you were just saying about, catching them doing something good, I think for me it seems to be that it has that kind of a knock-on effect. The more you are looking for the good things, you'll see the benefits, you'll see the changes coming in your children, and they'll start to kind of gear that way. And it does build that relationship where they kind of tend to gravitate towards you as opposed to away from you. If they know that when they come into your presence, you're going to be somebody who hugs them, who speaks to them in a respectful way, wants to know about their lives, they'll tend to gravitate to you in that sense. So it kind of does have a knock-on effect. Good comes out of good comes out of good. I know it's not always, there's no perfect children out there, Alan. My children aren't perfect. I have to say that. I'm not a perfect mother. We're not a perfect family. There are no perfect families. And, I tell my children that all the time, that you don't have a perfect mother, kids, But I think
but being real in it as well.
Yeah. And I think it is that they want to spend time with you if they know that they're going to be praised and affirmed and hugged, and I think you benefit. You all benefit from that in the long term. And I know I've said before, I lost my parents when I was quite young, 15. So for the vast part of my teenage years, I didn't have my parents there, so I don't have that to model on. So I kind of, you kind of forge your own way. And I think it is about the things that helped me was listening to programs like this, realising that words really are powerful. What you say has really great meaning and can affect people greatly. Things like that helped me, I think, in my parenting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there are great tools to help us. The book, The 5 Love Languages, and courses and things like that to help us to improve the way we relate. And this course that we're doing at the moment has just been done in on the south and the north side of Dublin there through the Vineyard, and they've already set up for another one for January now, because it went so well and people were really challenged by it, and they actually got new skills in parenting, and it's just practical advice on how to actually help grow as parents and love well. And a friend of mine was at a principal's office there a couple of days ago, and this guy's trained a lot of principals throughout Ireland, and he opened up his computer and went onto a YouTube clip, which I'm not sure what it was, and it was basically a study, and this boy got A, 2 A's, a C, and an F. Most parents would gravitate towards the F's, wouldn't they? And his philosophy was, okay, the F is there, but the natural ability is in the subjects that were the A's, and build on that. Look at the F and how we can improve it. But if you focus totally on the F all the time, the A's will probably drop down to C's or whatever. And we have to build on our strengths. What are my strengths? I have lots of weaknesses. What are my strengths? And how do I build on my strengths? Look at and recognize my weaknesses, and look at areas that I'm not good, and maybe get support around them. When I had a business and I looked at the areas that I wasn't good at and the areas that I was good at, and I got people into support me in the areas I wasn't good at, and then was able to focus a lot more on the areas I was good at, and it evolved and grew in that way. So in the same way as with our children, look at their abilities, look how great they are, see the potential in them, and try and encourage that and fan it, and you know what I mean, and see that you want to be there for them and that, and help them to focus on that. Sometimes you just don't know where they are. They're not sure, and gently encourage them to look at those things that they are strong in, and help them to develop that too, and their abilities, and the loveliness of my 3 boys are so different, and it's lovely, and yet it's challenging because sometimes one way it works with one and another thing doesn't work with the other, and how you actually do encourage those strengths in them is just lovely.
And as we said, it's not always going to be a bed of roses. You are going to still have challenges no matter how well you're trying to get things together. But I think the encouragement is there, Alan, and you said it, to reach out and get the help if you need help. And there are parents who are struggling, and I know there are issues, and I remember listening to an amazing program recently, and it was talking about mothers and the issues that mothers deal with, like things like anger, things like frustration, stresses in the homes, and it's pulling all those resources together so that we can move forward and build stronger families ourselves. The resources are there for a reason, and the reason is to help families to build those foundations, to gain those strengths, and to change things for the better.
Yeah, I often say it's not the situation that makes you, it's how you react to the situation. Like the latest studies say dyslexia there's an encouragement in dyslexia, in that a lot of dyslexia people are more likely to be self-employed and they think slightly differently. And sometimes the schools it's a system, it's a big kind of machine there, and sometimes it can find it hard to adjust to the individual. But yet there are ways, and schools are getting better at how they can help with dyspraxia, with dyslexia, with all the other areas that are tough for parents, and how they encourage their children, and that the child doesn't feel, oh, I'm not good, and how they can help them to find the positives in some of the tough areas that they might be going through.
Yeah.
And parents believing in their child. What was that film where that guy in the States was, he had his legs in a bind, and then he ended up running for, it was a long film, Tom Hanks was in it.
Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump. And a lot came down to his mother's belief in him.
Yeah.
And life is like a box of chocolates and all this sort of thing, and told stories. And, that child grew up and did lots of things. I know it was fictional, but you'd see that the mother believed in him, and she was going to do anything to support him, and saw his potential. And that was lovely. Getting one-on-one time with your children is so important as well, that sometimes, particularly if you have a big family, how you get that one-on-one time is a challenge. But it is try bring them in the car and have a chat with them in the car together. If you have to do a message or something like that, sometimes that's a way. Help them to make eye contact as well, that they look at the person. Because as you say, when you look at the person, you can tell a lot more, and you connect with them when you look at them. So try that. Ross Campbell talks about that, how to really love your child. So make eye contact with your child and my child, and communicate that.
I know we're fully out of time for today. We really ran over our slot. But if people do want to find out more information about, I know you were talking about the course running in Dublin, but of course, if there are people here in Cork who want to run the Alpha Parenting course, or indeed, I know we've talked about the Alpha Marriage course in the past, if they do want to get in touch and they do want to find out more information, how can they do that?
Yeah, they go onto the site alphacourse.ie, alphacourse.ie, and just ask to send there's two DVDs. One is for 0 to 10, basically that's kind of national school, and then 10 to 18, which you can have more secondary. Yeah. And you get the DVD and some of the books, and it's lovely seeing parents kind of looking at how they can parent well. Yeah. And look at the tools and the skills, the new skills that they can get from that. Just practical advice. And if people do have questions, they can always contact us, and we can deal with them over the next course of shows that we're looking at the whole issues of parenting. Absolutely. I talked a little while back there about, there's a guy called Owen Connolly who talked a lot about smell within the very young time of a child, and let them smell you. Let them smell you when you're young, because some of the studies are talking about attention deficit being related to lack of connection through smell. Very interesting. I know we have a lot more to cover in regards to parenting, and I have to say I'm really looking forward to our next couple of weeks together. And again, Alan, if people who want to check the website, is www.alphacourse.ie, and all the info is up there. As always, Alan, it was great to have you with us on the show, and we look forward to having you back again next week. Thank you, Anna. Thanks, Alan. Bye-bye.